I'm sure everyone has their favourite characters in World of Warcraft. Sylvanas, Saurfang, Garrosh, Khadgar, Magni, Wrathion and countless others. But to me, one stands out above everyone else, and that's Wrathion. I'm Mantas, and today we're looking at exactly who Wrathion is, what he's been up to since his inception into Azeroth, and what makes him one of the best characters within the game and lore. Just as a small disclaimer, everything stated is solely my opinion, and I'd love to hear what your opinions are in the comments down below. I will be covering a good part of his lore, but not every minute detail, so I'll include a time skip on screen if you already know the lore and don't want to hear it again. To fully understand him, it's worth covering exactly how he came into existence and avoided the terrible fate of his siblings, and what events he influenced during his time in the world. Wrathion, the Black Prince, is one of the few remaining black dragons on Azeroth that is known to be uncorrupted by the taint of the old gods and following the defeat of Neltharion or Deathwing, one of the last dragons of his kind. Grandchild of Deathwing and child of Nyxandra, his existence came about when the red dragon Rhistraza travelled to the Badland and had a mercenary group capture his mother to force her to lay eggs for experimentation, in hopes of her laying an egg that was uncorrupted. Eventually this was successful, for she laid an egg, and using an ancient Titan device called the Eye of the Watchers, a black whelp corpse and a wild black dragon egg, they managed to purify Nyxandra's egg, constantly being on the move to cover their tracks as the corrupted black Dragonflight had found out about this experiment. The egg was eventually hidden in the Vermilion Redoubt. 6 months later, the egg was stolen, shortly before it was due to be hatched, and it turns out that it landed in the hands of the Ravenholt. The egg had hatched, and Wrathion had even took control of the whole operation within that time. Clear of the whispers of the mad gods that plagued his Dragonflight, he saw with clear eyes how much the dragons charged with protecting the earth had fallen, and recognised the threat they presented to Azeroth. He knew of only one way to purify the flight, and that was by killing any remaining black dragons. If the player character was a rogue, then you likely helped him with this task during the Cataclysm, being rewarded with weapons that were upgraded constantly until you eventually got the legendary set Fangs of the Father. Once his mission was complete and his father had been killed, he survived an attack from the red dragonflight that was intended to kill him, before shortly announcing that it was time for him to disappear. Wrathion once again appears in Pandaria, basing in the Tavern in the Mists. After experiencing a vision of Azeroth's destruction, he invited adventurers to help him in averting this disaster. He mostly gave quests that had you delve into the raids of the expansion and gather materials / prove your might, where eventually you would be awarded a Shard Touch gem that gave you power. He rose tensions between the Alliance and Horde during their Pandaria campaign, and even ended up eating the heart of Lei Shen and helping the adventurer get their hands on a legendary Cloak of Virtue. Once the Siege of Orgrimmar had concluded, Wrathion was furious. He called Varian Wrynn a fool for allowing the Horde to continue to exist, stating how the Horde and Alliance were strong because of one another and had to combine under one flag to stand a chance against greater evils. This led him to work with the Infinite Dragonflight and free Garrosh to send him back to the past, for which Anduin confronted him. He proclaimed as the last of the Black Dragonflight the protection of Azeroth had fell unto him. He knocked Anduin out and left. During Battle for Azeroth, you can find an unscarred black scale from an island expedition, and you seek Wrathion out to give it to him. Though he himself wasn't present at the Black Rock Mountain, his Black Talent agents were, revealing that he had given himself the task of searching for the Dragon Isles. The next time you see him properly, he looked a lot more dashing. He had journeyed to multiple areas of interest to get more knowledge to try and figure out a way to resist the old god's corruption, managing to speak to the Shade of Medivh. Once Azshara had been dealt with, which let N'Zoth out of his prison during that process, Wrathion appeared in Stormwind with Magni. His intentions were good, telling Anduin how to deal with N'Zoth and how his armies would be useless, before being promptly punched by the young king.
You mean to tell me none of your spies have returned? N'Zoth is out there, and we need answers now!
We are doing all we can. Speaker Magni is coming, along with a new advisor. He claims to have information for us.
By the light, a new advisor.
Wrathion.
Anduin, it's been so long!
Oh, dragons.
I suppose I deserved that.
Oh, you deserve more than that. My father is dead because of you!
And my father is dead because of the old gods.
Lad, he's come to help us.
Neltharion the Earthwarder was once the protector of Azeroth. But N'Zoth turned a noble mind to madness, and now my father is only remembered as Deathwing. And as I haven't the least desire to share that fate, I've been studying how to avoid it.
Just tell me how to prepare for this attack. Our armies
Will be useless. N'Zoth will strike here. He'll manipulate emotions, get people to act in ways contrary to their nature. You won't be able to trust your senses, your memories, your friends. After all, what is real if our perceptions cannot be trusted? Anduin! Don't you see, old friend? It's already begun.
very well, advisor. Tell us how to stop him.
Wrathion also had a surprise cameo during a cutscene, in which he flew in and stabbed the carapace of N'Zoth with a blade of the Black Empire, which helped us, the adventurers, fight the mind control of the old god. Once the threat had been dealt with, he was also very forthcoming in taking on the young dragons of the Twilight Dragonflight to clear the Whispers and forge a new legacy for them. As his story hasn't played out in Dragonflight just yet, and he didn't have much involvement in Shadowlands, this is roughly where the lore ends. Wrathion is, in my opinion, one of, if not the best character in World of Warcraft. I'm not fanboying over him like he's the light of heaven and the best thing to ever exist, but his characterization is so polarizing that you have fans that hate him and fans that love him. That's what, to me, makes him an amazing character. Having fans at both ends of the spectrum, and not only that, he's a character whose motivations you can understand as we've been with him technically since he was born to who he is now. He could be seen as kind of an anti-hero. If we're going off the traditional definition, a central character in a story, film or drama who lacks conventional heroic attributes. If we're looking at traditional heroic attributes, we can take these 12 qualities into consideration and we can look at what values Wrathion has exhibited. In my opinion, I think Wrathion has exhibited all, if not most of these traits, but I'll omit self-sacrifice, honesty and selflessness, meaning he isn't your typical hero. Wrathion has a goal, and he stated it clearly each time. Though during some of it he did use a small guise and end up doing questionable tactics, his conviction has always been the same. First, he wanted to get rid of all the corrupted black dragons and end his father's madness, which he did. And with that goal achieved, he moved on to his next goal, stopping Azeroth's destruction after having visions. And even after N'Zoth's defeat, he stated that the Old Gods were one of the many adversaries that would threaten life on the planet that we've grown to love. Ultimately, his intentions are good, but he's a character who embodies the phrase, "the ends justify the means." And unlike the Jailer, he isn't on some sort of grand scheme to change how the cosmos works, to battle a bigger evil. He's aware that things are the way they are, that we need to make do with what we've been left and what we've built, and that we must come together to overcome the threats that are present. We help him in obtaining the heart Alay Shen wants, and witness him eating it, understanding how he wants to utilise the full power of the Mogu and what seemed like his father's side coming out from him. There's a small conversation he has with Chi-Ji where he speaks about the Legion invasion and what havoc they will wreak, well before it happens. So you can imagine the desperation for his plans to come true and avert this disaster being at the forefront of his mind. Though thankfully he learned a lesson of hope from the Great Crane, we get to learn his biggest fears, that he ends up like Deathwing, maddened and corrupted beyond retribution, and behind that Azeroth will fall. It's an eye-opening encounter into a character who's always kept his cards close to his chest, and for all intents and purposes we can understand and see that he means well. While his actions may seem morally questionable at times, they're not inherently evil. He's chaotic good in my eyes. A good character capable of evil, but only if there's reason behind it. Something that's worth mentioning is the fat loot that he tends to give us when he's involved in quests, and how can we not love getting free loot? Though his conviction is strong and clear, I keep mentioning how he employs questionable tactics. One of those is aiding Kairos Dormo in helping free Garrosh, directly leading into Warlords of Draenor. After Pandaria and his plans of having Varian decimate the Horde ultimately failing, he thought a great idea would be to have Garrosh change the course of history, which resulted in the Iron Horde being created, and now we all know how that turned out. I can understand how he wanted to build a giant army under one banner to combat the Legion when they inevitably came, but at the same time he did use drastic measures and ultimately gambled, and that gamble really did not pay off at all. Though it did introduce the Magheart Orcs and the Lightforged Draenei into the ranks of the Horde and Alliance respectively, there is a fair chance that if he hadn't have caused this issue, that going into Legion we may have been stronger and more prepared for any battles, but again that's just speculation. Researching for this video I did manage to glimpse at a fair few opinions. How Wrathion is whiny, troublesome and all in all causing issues since he appeared, but he is a child. I'm not using that as an excuse, and of course when I say he's a child I mean in the sense of a child in the Dragon world, but his life did begin in Cataclysm. According to the Wowpedia timeline, Cataclysm happened in the year 28, with the current year being 40 at the time of the Dragonflight release. This means that in, I guess, human years, he is around 12 years old. I'm not exactly sure how fast dragons grow, but he did go from whelp to drake fairly quickly. But you can imagine he is more grown up now. He is more wise than when he was when he made those decisions. He would have been around 3 years old when he made the decision to help Garrosh. I can guarantee he has took the time and thought about his mistakes and learned from them, and how he can actually help do things that don't cause an alternate universe to start. And we see this in him helping us with N'Zoth. Everyone makes mistakes, and fair enough, his mistakes have led to more dire consequences, but he was alone in the world trying to forge his own path on what he thought was morally right. Now, evidently freeing a war criminal to change the course of history definitely wasn't morally right, but he knew that Azeroth needed an army and he tried to provide one. Thankfully, we did survive the Burning Legion regardless and sent them packing. The fact that he was born as an experiment and we more or less watch him grow up and make decisions that can seem morally questionable to people, see him make mistakes and try to correct his wrongs, shows to me that he is a flawed character, and that's what makes him likeable. He's charismatic and confident, but he isn't perfect. He tells us what his motivations are and what his goals are, what his endgame is, and sometimes he lets us in on the plans on how he wants to achieve what he wants to achieve. In Dragonflight, Wrathion is going to be competing with Sabellian for leadership of the Dragonflight, and it's going to be a tough race. I've seen people stating why they like one over the other, but honestly I'm probably going to be Team Wrathion simply because I don't know who Sabellian really is. I'm sure the expansion is going to give us a lot of lore about what he's been up to since his voyage to Outland and who he is as a dragon, but all I can say is that Wrathion is the only one of the two with a demonstrable resolve for the safety of Azeroth at the moment. I do wish they included Wrathion in the Dragonflight cinematics, honestly. Seeing him get the Blizzard R-Team touch-up would have been amazing, but let's hope that there's more of them to come. We do have an entire expansion to get through after all. Just to end this video off, I'm just going to say that my opinion isn't going to be the same as everyone's, obviously. My favourite character from World of Warcraft growing up was Medivh due to his rich lore. So let me know down below who your favourite character is and why. And also if you're going to be Team Wrathion or Team Sabellian in Dragonflight. And as always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.
Splendid! You two have found common ground already. Now then, let us begin preparations for our voyage. The Dragon Isles await.